The Knotties didn't start to create a fandom. It didn't start to create money. It didn't start for any of this. Like, this was therapy. And I when I find, everything draws us back to music, like we were saying, the coolest thing about music is, it's therapy, but it's also because it's based off trauma.
These songs that you've written so far, would you say they're inseparable from traumatic experiences? Yeah. They are the fruits of the processing.
That's the therapy,
Yeah.
And we started the Knotties for that. It was about getting up there with your brothers, and we weren't doing it for anyone but ourselves, and we still don't, and it just so happened to be that people dig it and support it, and I honestly, that is the most amazing thing, most amazing feeling in the world, and just the support has always been incredible. But that's not how it started. This was almost just kind of nothing else worked. You could go to therapy, you could do drugs, you could do all this numbing stuff and still do, and but that music was that feeling that I was looking for in all those other substances, right? Mm-hmm. And still will.
It's life-serving and life-saving, and it makes sense, I think, that people grab, whether or not consciously, that the people that then end up becoming fans.
Chemistry's a sexy thing, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can notice that,
there's a power, there's a force to it.
Yeah, there's so many deeper reasons than making a catchy beat for me. I'm proud of how it resonates with people, but I need that, I need to be able to have that release, that escape, because that's the only one that's actually ever worked.
Yeah, and I think as humans, we need it too.
Yeah.
So people gravitate towards music that sounds cool, they like the beat. Yeah. But also, you were saying kind of beyond the music.
Yeah.
Music seems to be able, in my experience, to play an important role that goes beyond music, that nothing else can perform that role. So paradoxically, it's like it is all about the music, but it's also about flourishing and meaning.
Watch a movie without any scores on it and tell me how you like it. You won't. It's not normal. It's weird. It's actually very strange to...
When, in the book, The Gifts of Imperfection, which was a big influence on my book, Her Hummingbird Heart, there are 10 different guideposts to wholehearted living, and one of them is laughter, song, and dance. So Brené Brown, the author of the book, is theorizing about the importance of music a little bit in that chapter. And she uses that exact example. Watch a film without the score.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll experience, through the lack of the music, how much we take the role that music plays in our lives for granted.
Yeah.
You go in a coffee shop, there's going to be some music playing.
Yeah.
We're playing songs back to ourselves. The title track of the record hum is about that, and essentially about how music doesn't play as large a role in Brené Brown's theorizing about what wholehearted living is as it does in her experience of wholehearted living. So that's why my main tool to communicate my sense of life and meaning is a record that I've made, because music is central. It also says on the bio the performances are explosive, conveying a deep and shared restlessness.
Yeah.
And I like that
that restlessness is important.
Is key.
Yeah.
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 Why is the restlessness key?
So I feel that, back to Spiral Out in that way too, with a mood setter, it's more of a sense of creating anxiety in the record. I don't want you to get too comfortable. It's not like a painful anxiety. It's not a itchy anxiety. It's a, oh wow, this is, making me feel some type of way that I didn't ask for, but it's key for the next song or part of the record. So
yeah, it's a key ingredient.
Yeah.
Some kind of transformation perhaps can happen.
Yeah. My big thing is it's on the back of my guitar. If I lift it up, it says it's good to feel something.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's good to have those feelings. It's good to have emotions. It's good to have anxiety and sadness and happiness and all this stuff. It's normal.
So the music is helping the listener be with these discomforting experiences and emotions,
These
perhaps
human
that would
emotions,
otherwise we
yeah.
want to push them away.
Yeah,
like, I don't generally go about wanting to experience anxiety, but I do have the experience
Right.
of when I am in a discomforting situation and I am rested and in touch with myself, then
Yeah.
of course growth can happen
Yeah.
through working through what's there to work through.
Yeah.
And it seems like your music is providing a container where someone can undergo that kind of
Yeah.
experience.
The whole point of our live show back in the day too was it was all to benefit us. Like, it was funny because like photographers would hate this, but I would always have low red light the whole show. Right?
No disco balls, it said.
Yeah.
There is a disco ball at the VFW.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that
if that's the only thing that's going on, I'll be okay with that. Yeah. I like
but
to
red
have
light, what was the significance of the red light?
it just, I don't know. I felt like all of our songs really radiated a low red light aura to them. But yeah, when you put just low red lights, you fill the stage full of smoke, and you come out there and you don't just play the first song. You play not even necessarily a jam, but just like an interlude of things you've created, just to really bring that crowd in. Like, they're gonna already, they'll fall forward all together to the stage.
Yeah,
and
setting the scene, like
then you come
like
out with
the opening of the
boom.
self-titled
Yeah.
LP.
Yeah, and it's kind of haunting, but yeah, you create that anxiety right away. But then they're interested. They're like, wait, what is this? Why is this band how is this band doing this? I don't know. I've always seen a live show, and if they're gonna make me feel something before they even start, that's cool. That's a hell of a feeling.
It's good to feel something.
Yeah.
What you were saying about the relationship with music and the importance of restlessness made me think of a metaphor for your life that I encountered in my favorite piece of writing about the Knotties.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, let's just begin with the metaphor and then we'll talk about the writing and the author. But the context is that you are at King House Buffet.
Yeah, I knew that was the one.
In downtown Fargo.
Yeah.
And
Rest in peace, King House closed.
Oh, I missed my opportunity to go.
Yep.
And you've gone on a third trip to the buffet and you've returned with an entire plate of macaroons. And as you're approaching the table, then you start to slip, but you manage to right yourself. He's made a loud stomp and the staff reacts with concern, but he has in fact saved it while spilling almost nothing. He shouts just that to her with an enthusiastic smile, the waitress, presumably. This is really a metaphor for Channing's entire life. He seems to move through life not necessarily with ease, but with resilience and a certain adventurous, almost reckless enthusiasm. Musically or otherwise, he's always on the precipice. That was the phrase that was coming to me. He's always on the precipice, but he always saves it. So what reflections, it's nice to feel something. What are you feeling at the moment? That is, of course, Nick, who is now in the Knotties.
That was before he was, yeah.
This is going to be the first record you were saying with the 4...
Yeah, other than the 3-song
members
EP that we're also going to re-record and put on this record just instead.
Yeah.
Because the songs deserve that studio space.
So
Nick, yeah.
Yeah, the metaphor there, what do you think about Nick's metaphor of Channing's life? This is pre-being in the band, and how do we get from Nick on December 26th, 2019, publishing this excellent piece of writing about the Knotties, to now where the Knotties, including Nick, are building up to this big release?
So the funniest thing, so the metaphor for one, spot on. I mean, we call it Channing luck in our circle.
Mm-hmm. Of course, Channing bumps into Ondara at Mortimer's, and then a couple of weeks later, not only is there Ondara there, but Ondara is sat at a table with the person that I've seen interviewing bands for like 8 years
ago.
Are
you Simon? Yeah. I know.
And then immediately we're friends.
Yeah, the Channing luck aspect of it that's the good side, and then the other Channing luck is like on the way home from that night, like me running out of gas, possibly. Oh, speaking of,
here's Nick. Welcome. We're talking about you. I just quoted. Would you like to move your chair here and join our interview? Now we're joined by Nick. Very much not interrupting the flow, but rather being with the flow in the book The Artist's Way that influenced my book on creativity. Julia Cameron speaks about good orderly direction or flow, that being something which people will experience if they commit to their creativity. And I think the arrival of Nick, just as we were talking, I was literally asking Channing to reflect on how he felt after I quoted the bit where Channing is falling over in the restaurant, but then lands it, and then he's resilient, and that's a metaphor for his entire life. The piece closes with your conclusion is, this is Channing's world, we're all just living in it. What did the two of you now feel about revisiting that piece from this vantage point, with Nick, of course, being in the band and the band flourishing?
I said my piece.
Oh, you said your piece?
Well,
oh, okay.
It just, the metaphor made sense completely. And in that time, too, like, just a lot of different stuff was happening. And yeah, I don't know. The thing I was going to get to is when Nick finally brought it up to me that he was like, hey, like, I want to be in the band. I didn't take him seriously because I just looked up to Nick as like the craziest, best player I've ever seen. Honest to God, right? So we hired a keyboard player. And in that time, though, it was like, I just didn't, I don't know, it was, I didn't feel like I was, I didn't even expect Nick I didn't take him seriously. I just didn't think that we were good enough to have Nick, I guess. And then when
it seemed implausible to you that Nick would want to join the Knotties.
Yeah, once I finally realized he was serious and stuff, then obviously it was like, yep, we're doing it, and here we are. But
I read in a past interview that before running into 10th grade teacher Michael again, you were thinking of maybe doing like a solo record with like session musicians or something. And then to go from that moment to then Michael had encountered Johnny in Duluth.
Yeah.
And then for the Knotties to then be an object of attention of Nick's, to the point where Nick is enthusiastically celebrating them in this piece and then voicing, I would be happy, I'd like to be in this band. What are your feelings?
Yeah, gosh. Didn't expect this.
How do you feel?
You've looked up my writing. This is kind of terrifying. But yeah, absolutely. I was definitely using that spot like a true journalist to just, shill for my friends in their upcoming shows. And those what the other ones are about too in that series, which, is legit to the extent that, yes, there'd be a big show. We were doing New Year's Eve maybe or something, and, things like that. Or there'd be a big Halloween show, and I, would talk to the organizer and kind of, do the thing. And we'd become pretty good friends, in the 2 months before that, but we'd known each other. This is in fall of 2019, so we've known each other since probably fall 2015. We were friends, but yeah.
Michael was teaching guitar at your store, is that correct? Or
Michael never taught it at Amped, but yeah, we had some connection through that, or he did come do singer-songwriter and some stuff with you, like hosting some events. I guess now that I think about it, so Michael was definitely involved, doing some of those things, and they'd come in and talk about Knotties tunes and break them down for people who wanted to learn about that, and so, and I'd known Michael before, too. Michael was actually one of my first customers in 2015.
Michael has introduced me to him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hodo.
Well,
Michael introduced me to all of the other members of the band.
Michael introduced, he told me, there's this new guitar shop down on Broadway. It's just one room, but there's a nice couch in the middle. And that's all I remember, and I never went, and then finally I'm at the Hodo with a fake ID, having a old-fashioned at 17 years old, and
as one
There's
does.
Nick.
You know?
There's Nick with a mohawk.
I went there a lot after work. That was a good spot.
He had a mohawk, too.
They had like a club card, so you get discounts.
I had the black card membership.
Being frugal, if nothing else. But yeah, I don't know. That was the deal. Like, I don't know if any of the articles I wrote, other than that, were that personal about the artist as opposed to the event or the thing we're trying to promo and stuff. But yeah, there's just sort of a no bullshit thing going on, at least when we're hanging out. That's like you're gonna get Channing as Channing, full on, and yeah. God, I don't think I even ate buffet that day, but there's nothing that was going to stop you from eating a lot of buffet.
5 plates, yeah.
Somewhat massively, and then, I almost spilling a glass of milk, which also just, for some reason, makes total sense in a wholesome way that you're getting some calcium.
When did you join the band?
Yeah, so shortly thereafter, it would have been like January then, 2020. And this is all kind of
right before Knotties Fest.
Yeah, I guess officially. Knotties Fest was the official
show.
first full show, but we'd played a full show together all before at Palmer's, actually, on January 11th. So it all kind of happened real fast in that regard. We were jamming a lot. We played a bunch on Christmas that year. Neither of us had anything to do. So we had a Christmas Eve through Christmas Day, like 15-hour jam. And so we were just making
just as one does.
Just Nick and I.
Yeah, just the two of us. And
Yeah,
so we've been
at my
playing a lot of
studio.
music. And so, in the span of just that January, things escalated. We played a lot that month, too. We had a New Year's. We had I want to say we had a gig with Frog Leg or something, random one, or maybe Highlight.
Yeah, I believe so.
So what is Knotties Fest?
Well, Knotties Fest is we're trying to make it annual. I mean, it has been annual. This year, we're past the February deadline, but it's a cool thing. It's like it's not a huge festival. It's just it's a Fargo Fest where we can choose who's playing with us, and it seems to be a good hit because like especially now that we're in Minneapolis, like coming back to Fargo, even just for this government mule show is going to be fantastic. Like it's. If we play in Fargo, usually like we can sell a very big crowd, if not sell out most of those small venues in town. And it's just that support. I mean, that's always been the home of the band, and now we're here. Like that, that's what got us here, I guess. So, Knotties Fest, I guess, is a celebration of that, and especially with this new record, that's kind of my idea, I guess, is once we get a new record out, that'll be a really good reason to not only just tour, but also have that Knotties Fest, which might be the next one, but still, we kind of planned it around our schedule for that year. So later in the year, if it's feasible and if it makes sense for ticket sales and for just supply and demand of the Knotties, then that's how it will go. But
Totally. The Knotties Fest that was on the horizon at the time that we're talking about, when they could just join the band, was on February 21st, 2020. So then immediately after that,
10 days later,
we have the pandemic.
Yeah.
So then what happens in the story of the Knotties then?
Yeah, that was particularly wild because of just that. We had just played, like I say, I think 3 times in January, or counting New Year's, and
2019 was a crazy year for us.
I think we had gone to John's, for his birthday on the 25th. Then after that, like January, we were just going.
Right.
Everything looks up. Yeah, we have a little break to prep for Knotties Fest, and then, we were just doing so much in the run-up to it, the end of the world there. So,
what was supposed to be 2 weeks.
yeah, a lot of disappointment there. I guess, like, personally, we did spend a lot of that time just riding bikes and doing acid, but we also recorded an EP in May of that year. And that,
Great EP.
That's, I guess, still, our kind of most recent published thing on Spotify and stuff. And, got some really good tunes out of that. I think Home and some of those, that's probably one of our most popular songs in some digital streaming statistical sense. And, that was our big thing in the downtime. We played a handful of times over the summer. like the most unpopular Sturgis, probably. You know,
Yeah.
during the pandemic year, stuff like that. You know.
And then I got in trouble and then got better, and that was probably one of the weirdest climaxes. I don't know. It's kind of nuts to realize like what you have. Let's just say, even if the band was just musicians together and not actually friends and like
Yeah.
a brother thing, like you realize once you don't have it, what you have, right? And just the fact that we're still all here after everything that happened in that time of COVID and quarantine and trouble, like, I don't know. That was like my biggest fear ever, was to like lose that, and the fact that I didn't lose them just in general was like, that was huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
What? So you were on the trajectory on the back of Knotties Fest. That was just one tip of the iceberg of being on the right trajectory. Suddenly that comes to a halt with the pandemic. And your experience of getting in trouble and coming out, what impact does that have as now we're back on the trajectory again? And we already were talking at the beginning of the interview about restlessness and creating music that peppers in some anxiety as an important ingredient.
Yeah.
What role is your experience of getting in and out of trouble play?
So sometimes it's hard to like even channel that same emotion and stuff when I don't have that constantly happening around me, or around them, which it wasn't healthy, but it made some really impactful music. I mean, it did. It was just like, it was a different feeling. But yeah, it wasn't healthy. That's just the moral of the story. It's different now. We can still write stuff. It's a different. It's hard to learn like and teach yourself a new way to completely live your life. Rather like when it comes down to just writing, like what time of day do you do it now? When it's not in the middle of the night on the third day, you know? Like when do you pick up the guitar? What do you feel to do so? Like what's writing these songs if everything is better than it was? I don't know. It's just it's weird. And it's not necessarily even better all the time. It's just it was a whole different planet back then. But now this trajectory of like even just moving here, just for a change of scenery and more opportunity, like, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be in Terrarium if we were still in Fargo.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have met Andara. He wouldn't have gotten us in there. We wouldn't be getting asked to play with Government Mule for the rate we're getting asked to, and being treated like we are now a cities band, which we are, but like, yeah, like all this comes into play. There's the ups and downs, but just the fact that we're still trying and we're still able to, you know, not even convince, but just like keep each other into it,
Yeah.
you know?
Those are signs of being on the right track, aren't they?
Yeah, it's different than it was. It's just a learning thing at this point, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing it's something I don't even know, so I can't even really touch on it.
With the idea of those being signs of being on the right track, that made me think of Let Me Down, where we encounter in nature there the simple signs that nature brings. We're going to take a kind of whistle-stop tour of some of the lyrics in that record, because there's lots going on there thematically that I think relates to what we've been talking about earlier in the interview with restlessness and the invitation to follow in the footsteps. I mean, this record begins with footsteps in the church.
Yeah.
And then on two different songs, Take My Hand, Walk With Me If You Dare, that's both in Lay Me Down and also in Flower Child.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is lazy. I think
it's definitely a theme.
That's significant.
Yeah.
So just isolating that repeated lyric, the idea of taking Channing's hand and walking with him if we dare, there might be some precarity.
There's an element of danger.
So I was gonna say, it's not my hand.
Oh, okay.
It's death.
Okay.
That whole record is very themed around death. Lay Me Down is completely about dying. It is. I like to personify death as a relationship, or as a beautiful girl, or you know.
Two beautiful girls. I mean, the hook is "Lay Me Down 6 feet under" there. So yeah. I think Yeah.
It's just
It gets spelled out.
yeah. It's just that song specifically is just like that curiosity of what happens after you're dead. In that time of life, it was just like, God, what is it? And take my hand and walk with me. It's either take my hand and come with me down, or take Death's hand and walk with it. It just
In
and Flower Child
Flower
was
Child? Okay,
Flower Child. Yeah, that Flower Child was a song about an addicted girl, a pretty little hippie, on codeine, This song is funny because I wrote that just higher than a kite, and not necessarily in a good way. It was funny because I was around my mom at the time, and I was writing it out that day, and she read it. She was like, "Chaney, this is ridiculous. This is crazy." I said, "Just wait. You just wait," And then the guitar riff itself came from. I picked up the guitar off the couch. I was really sick. You were there that day, right? Didn't you come and visit me at
Elizabeth?
No, it was in Dilworth when I was staying at my mom's boyfriend's. Yeah. I picked up a guitar, and literally the way I picked it up, I strummed it, and what my hand had grabbed the guitar as was that D chord. That's how it's just funny how things work out sometimes.
That is funny.
The guitar over.
Yeah, it's a hit.
That is funny.
But yeah, that whole record is just I guess everything was kind of centralized around death and spiritual things that I couldn't reach, and addiction. Yeah, it was completely that.
We're going to be with that record for a couple more minutes. We'll just visit a few moments in it, and then we'll close by focusing on Spiral Out, which is going to give a little taster, although this is not the version of the song that will be on the record. You were saying about curiosity, about death. Question Everything is a central track. Curiosity, wondering, questioning. This is what they call sinning. Am I hearing that right? This is what they call living. Then in another song, there's focus on this is what they call love. You call in Stripped.
Stripped.
Yeah. You call this love? Well, I guess I don't know what love is.
Yeah.
So we're questioning what love is. That's the key thing that my record Hum that we're doing the release show for on June 8th at VFW is also doing.
Yeah.
We're questioning what love is. We're questioning what sinning is. For me, sinning is just missing the mark. There's a whole bunch of shame around the idea of sin.
Absolutely.
But a lyric in I Let Loving Cut a Rug from the Hum record is I miss my mark. Shit, that's a sin. We miss our mark all the time when we're precariously falling, but then we land it. What reflections do you have on questioning love, sin, living, what Stripped and Question Everything, what those two songs are doing?
Question Everything. So when I say, I guess, you call this sinning, I say I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Because God, I guess everything we do is maybe some sinning. And then you call that living.
Right.
I guess I'll be okay with it. It was just more so I was forcefully raised into a certain lifestyle. It was kind of a petty song, but the song starts though with, I'm sitting here stoned, calling your phone. It's pretty much just praying. It was personifying that, that God thing as that girl you keep trying to get a hold of and you can't.
It strikes me as really interesting that in that one we have this choice between what people call sinning, what people call living, and in the perspective of that song, we're choosing what is called sinning, because it seems more attractive, to what is called living, and false idols are singing praise. Meanwhile, it just strikes me as so interesting that this is recorded in the church,
right,
and circling back to the original idea of the emotional, perhaps spiritual significance of music.
Yeah.
And in the context where we lose belief in love because someone says this is what love is, and then we experience the dysfunction.
Yeah.
But then music has this important role, life-saving role to play. I love that you're almost kind of preaching, I think, by the end of the Question Everything song. Yeah?
That's kind of wild. And when you break it down that way, it's kind of brings me back to being in that church recording that and feeling, even in Question Everything, I think Dom, our sound guy, he put in one of the Martin Luther King Jr. speeches.
That's what that is.
Yeah, that's what that is. And that was his idea. He put it in. You can't really hear it, but once you read the speech, it's kind of nice to have that part of it. But yeah, I guess that whole record was kind of preachy.
You have an awareness. This thing that seems like sinning. This is saving me, or I have there's
this is
more
what
to
I'm
the story
comfortable
than
in.
that.
Yeah. And if this is what you call living, like, I'll be okay without that. Like, that's like, that ain't living to me. The
Right.
love thing, the way you break that down too, was very nice. Like, yeah, like, if you're told something tastes good by someone else and they're forcing you to eat this, but you keep, puking it up, like, maybe it doesn't taste good to you.
I think these false idols, that's right, isn't it? False idols
Singing praise to false idols.
Singing
so,
praise to, yeah.
Yeah, you're just going to base your whole life off of, praising a false idol that, I don't know. It's all going to be personal to anyone, but, if you haven't gotten anything back out of it, then find what works for you.
The awareness of the false praise, it seems crucial to understanding the significance of the deep and shared restlessness, the invitation of anxiety, wanting people to be present in the moment and using the music to foster that.
Yeah.
It's almost an antidote. If you think that this is what love is and that this is what exercising praise is, then let me offer an experience that might...
The most important part of that song would be the ending. And that is that idea of letting go, right? Like, one day we'll fly like two birds up in the sky, like, it's the most, like, beautiful ending to such a petty song in sense. Like, it was just, like, it's okay to be questioning things. You don't need an answer to everything. Like, you don't need to be convinced by anyone and just forced to believe something like, hey, one day this is what's going to happen and everything's going to be okay. It's not something to be afraid of. That was kind of just, going back into the whole death thing. Like, it's like, hey, one day we will just be something else. One day we will be fine. We're going to be two birds up in the sky. We'll be just, you don't have to question anything anymore. Yeah, living free. Yeah, and like, I love that. I love playing that live because, like, after you're playing that song and I'm feeling that spite while playing it, then all of a sudden it lets go. And I get to hear one of the most beautiful guitar solos at the same time. But like, that was a different moment too, even when recording it in that church. Was once we recorded that song was one take. On that record was one take, and I remember once we got done and that ending starts, I hope my mic didn't pick up my stomach growling. Once that ending starts, I remember we all just set like our instruments down after that take. It was this incredible feeling of like everyone like stopped and like looked at each other, and we all took our guitars off really quiet. And it wasn't like part of the song. Like, it was just like we had to just walk out of the room after that and just kind of like, I don't know, take a breather. It was just wild.
So we have that release there where the song initially invites us to question everything, but then allows us to be liberated even from questioning everything at the end.
That's the most happy ending song I've ever written, for sure.
Yeah.
That is the most happy you'll ever feel after hearing one of the Knotties songs, I guess.
But you're pretty happy at the end of Home.
Home is the next thing and that was a whole, separate record and entity, and that's with Nick. And that's my favorite song to play. That's our favorite. That's our fans' usually favorite song to hear at this point.
Yes.
I don't blame them.
Well, so if those are the happiest moments, other times, like in Too Much in My Head, there are dirty looks to the left of me. That's right, isn't it? Dirty looks to the right of me. And then also inside me as well. So the downside to being with anxiety is, of course, kind of encapsulated there.
Yeah.
And
that song touched on judgment too. Just the dirty looks to the right of me too. Like, that's like, the song is about acid. That song was about acid. Let's just be real.
This person is acting strange.
Yeah, like they're like,
happening a lot.
why is this guy like? There's always a meaning to a song that the writer has, right? I mean, that's just a normal thing. When I write a song, I'm not trying to get you to be where I was, because I don't. That's that's unrealistic. I mean, I would never wish that on a lot of people, but also some people should know what it felt like. But no, that was my personal experience with it. When people hear that song, though, like, that's very relatable on a lot of different levels. Dirty Looks Inside of Me, like, that's you looking at yourself. That's that shame, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And that song it was so literal. Too much in my head and too much on my plate. Like, it was just a lot going on, but it got funky.
The Hum record is also, it's about questioning what love is and opening oneself up to love. It's also about shame, though.
Yeah.
It's like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, like I was saying before. And Act 2 is when the shame tapes and gremlins arrive. And we've made this commitment. I'm going to commit to creativity. I'm going to harness my hummingbird heart, to use the phrase of the book. And then the shame tapes are like, who do you think you are? You can't do that.
Yep.
And then these voices are saying, you can't do this. We're on a similar journey, I think, encountering the same impediments and working through in the same way. On the topic of acid, Mark Moorman, do you know Mark Moorman? His little appraisal.
Was that what he said yesterday? Yeah.
You were what?
We saw him at Moritz.
I saw him yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had this talk.
His reflection, his comment on the Hum record is that it's the type of music that acid eaters should eat to when they're coming off the trip. Everybody wants to come down smooth.
Nice.
Neuroplasticity is a thing, and I think that some of the advantages that someone might encounter from having a psychedelic experience, they could also experience from certain types of meditation and so on, to break us away from our patterns and the clutches of these voices to some extent. Let's close with our journey from the theme that's introduced in Lay Me Down, and it's in Too Much in My Head as well, this idea of wanting to break away from the past and erase it from our head. And then that shows up in the new song, which used to be called In My Head, is now called Spiral Out. There again, we have voices all around. There again, trapped in the exact time and space I tried to leave behind. Mm-hmm. What reflections do you have initially just on the continuity of those themes in this new song?
It's wild how much that in my head comes back. And like you said, it's not like a laziness. It's just like there was just a period of time, too, where I just thought, like, I was having extreme voices in my head, and they were kind of dictating some things that I would do. And it was probably all just done to myself. But that in my head, I mentioned to you, in the dream sense, like, that was all based off of a dream. And
a lucid dream.
A lucid dream where, I found myself hanging in my room, and I always thought if you saw yourself dead in a dream that you were dead in real life. And I remember I got up frantically and went out to the living room, and I ended up writing a song and called Nick right after, and I was like, dude, like, this is just crazy. And then so, like, we had learned the song, had been introduced to the band, everyone knew the story, and then our buddy comes over to my apartment, and Nick's there, and my roommate's there. He walks in, he's like, oh, this is weird being back here. And we're like, why? And he's like, well, my best friend Rory, 10 years ago, I found him here. He hung himself.
In your bedroom?
Yeah.
Where you had the dream?
That was, it was in my room, or it was the room below it. I can't remember if he was in the basement unit or if it was in mine. Yeah. But it was just that was weird. I stood up, and you stood up, and we both started crying. It was just weird. That was just so strange, because everyone knew the story. Like, it was just the weirdest coincidence or the weirdest energy thing that has ever really happened.
Right, exactly. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that...
The song
seems
came...
too strange to be a coincidence.
The song came, in a dream, and it came so aggressively. And it was one of those ones, too, where it's like, it just wrote itself right away. And now, once we're all together as a band and we recorded it as the first single in this amazing studio, the studio version of it now is just, it's insane. It's incredible. The way it became, the feelings it gives me when I listen to it, even just in the sense of quality, just incredible. But like, that's that song that creates that anxiety. And I'm assuming, you know,
It invites
three-fourths
the
through the
anxiety.
record, it's going to be, after a few good rock and roll songs, then all of a sudden you have this. And it's just going to remind you why we're doing this. Like, why this, why this record, why this record's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you repeated my "it's not laziness" with the repetition of the
Central idea.
specific lyric. But it's interesting, like the juxtaposition of choosing to go back somewhere, choosing, like you were saying near the beginning of the interview, to go back to where the anxiety is it seems to be that that's a necessary ingredient for growth.
Yeah, that's that restlessness that we talk about.
Yeah,
right?
totally. So the lyric is saying, trapped in the exact time and space I tried to leave behind, and that's the focus in the earlier song too.
Yeah.
But then there's this intentional return.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like when there is this intentional return, you've had this dream and okay, we'll go back to death again.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
it seems like something very meaningful happens with strange signs of the meaningfulness of it.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying before the interview that your relationship with your home shifted after writing that song.
It was way. I remember there'd be times I'd call him even at like 3 a.m. and be like, "Dude, I just like gotta get out of here. Like this is."
It was prior to writing the song. If you felt unease,
Yeah, it was just weird stuff would always happen there. I don't know.
and that's gone.
I mean, let's be honest, that place was haunted.
Yeah, that place
Not
was.
just us.
No.
Me, Sean, we all experienced the haunted. I don't know whether people believe in that or not.
Right.
But
Yeah.
But that was your experience.
yeah.
Anyone that I bring to my home, even in that, and he was there all the time, but like anyone, like it was just, it was insane.
And that's
then after
less
we
your
had
experience
that,
now, having written the song, which is like the first thing to land for the new record.
Yeah.
That seems all very meaningful.
Yeah, things happen, I guess, for a reason that way. I was glad to have that, just that resolution, I guess, at the end of it. Once it happened, like, I mean, I learned like Rory's favorite band was Red Hot Chili Peppers, and like that was something I loved as well. So I just blasted. I don't know. Everything seemed brighter after that.
You would blast Red Hot Chili Peppers
Yeah,
in Rory's
yeah.
old
Yes.
home for Rory and for you.
And then I knew the name, too, of
Yeah.
what was happening. It just, the coincidence was almost too, that was more than I've ever had in my life. I mean, that was just a very insane situation. And now the song, I love the song. I love the feeling that it gives me. I can think about the video that will be, you know, what we're going to create for it eventually. Like, it's crazy because, like, yeah, it's coming back and touching back on everything that we've written and released, but, like, it's a totally different story. But it all has that central idea. I can't really write about butterflies and unicorns right now. It's just because, I don't know.
But there is space for the bird that's flying free
Yeah.
from the recurring
And
patterns
that progression that's behind it, like, that's the biggest thing we were talking about. It was just, you can hear these songs without the words and just kind of know what this song is about, right?
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
the cinematic thing that we're capable of doing because we're, you know, this band has musicians that I wouldn't have ever dreamt of playing with.
You were saying that the whole series of experiences around writing the song Spiral Out is the most extreme, strange. But there have been a series of weird coincidences with you seeing Ondara and Mortimer's, and then Ondara and I being back at Mortimer's preparing to do an interview at Ice House, and you recognizing me from 8 years ago. And
Everything's
there's a
connected
whole
in one
bunch
way
of
or
weird
another.
coincidences happening,
Yeah.
and they're bound to continue happening. And we invite you to join us as they continue to happen at the Uptown VFW on June 8th,
Yeah.
when the Hum record release will happen. It's just CDs that are coming out that day. So if you want to get a hold of the record, there's only 2 ways you can hear the songs. You can buy a CD, physical CD, from us at the VFW that day, or you can do the workbook. You can access the workbook that Channing and I were talking about at the beginning of the interview, which will have QR codes where you can listen to the songs for free as prompts to harness your own creativity.
I'm imagining now that we've talked about all this, that June 8th, we're going to have to really put on a kick-ass show, I tell you what. So we hope to see everyone there.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we're going to. And in the meantime, as this interview ends, we're going to go off on an adventure on the West Bank that will be narrated in one of the final chapters of the book, Her Hummingbird Heart, which culminates in June 8th record release. We go on our adventure at the Wienery, which is to be narrated in the future.
Thank you so much for having
Maybe
us.
you can narrate a bit of it. Maybe I'll almost fall over.
Yeah.
And it will be a metaphor. Okay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you
Come
for
and join
having
us
us.
at June 8th and come and see them in Fargo with,
Government Mule.
yep,
June
on
24th, Saturday.
Saturday, June 24th. At Fargo Brewing Company.
Yeah.
Okay,
Outdoors,
two
yeah.
big shows coming up
Tickets are for sale on our social media and stuff, so
for both the shows.
check it out.
Okay, thanks for going on this journey with us. I'm Simon Calder. We will have more Back to the City next week at 10 p.m. Come and see the Knotties on June 8th and or June 24th.